Good afternoon, and thanks for joining our webcast today, The Power of Connected Workflows. And one of the things I wanted to talk about first was, there's multiple products out there that I want to take a look at. And based upon what I see from the registration lists, there are several individuals out there of different disciplines. So what I want to do first is I want to get a couple questions out in reference to my audience. And again, I'm going to be working with InfraWorks, Revit, Civil 3D, Autodesk Vehicle Tracking, and also Navisworks.
So that's my cue. We're going to ask polls. So the first poll we're going to put out is, what type of work do you do? So you should be able to see that on the screen. So if you'll just please register with one of those comments and then add back. Let's see. So we'll just wait a few seconds here to get that. So commercial, I'm talking commercial design and residential design. Okay, we're getting close there. A few more seconds for the opportunity to vote. Okay, we're going to close this poll and we're going to see what the audience does. And so we're sharing now the results, and you can see we have a big commercial design is a majority of the audience, and the 40% is other. And so we'll try to figure out what the other is and try to get something for you. And then we have another poll question we're going to ask, and this deals with a software called InfraWorks. And so we're asking, are you using InfraWorks? So if you please choose one of the selections on the screen there, can give us some feedback about our audience, and then hopefully Ken will be able to leverage this when he's doing his presentation. Few more seconds here. Looks like we've leveled off, so I'm going to close the poll and show the results. So you can see here, majority of the audience do not have InfraWorks installed, and a few of you have played with it a few times. So again, we want to thank you for providing feedback and letting us know about the audience. And now I'm going to turn this back over to Ken.
And thank you all for that poll. And just to kind of get things started here, I'm just going to presume, based upon everyone saying 40% other, that has something to do with architectural and engineering. I know there was some who registered in terms of manufacturing, but one of the things I want to kind of quickly look at is this ideal of InfraWorks, because I talked about several things, and one of the things that I want to get across is anytime that I worked in my career in terms of doing engineering or design, one of the things that I often did first was think of the concept in terms of creating, communicating, and then designing. So one of the things that I want to kind of quickly look at is this ability to work on a conceptual infrastructure project, whether it's residential, whether it's commercial, or even manufacturing and maybe process and plant. So just quickly, one of the things with InfraWorks, again, the ability to create a conceptual model that allows you to communicate ideas about that project. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to go in to my model builder. So with model builder, it allows me to go anywhere in the world and grab topo data, road data, building data, and aerial imagery. So once this comes up, and we'll just wait for the model builder here. So there's my model builder. It brings up the United States. And the first thing that I want to do in terms of the model builder is that you have the ability to put in any address or go to a specific location with the model builder. So with that, I want to go in and I am going to type in a specific address. So the first thing up here in model builder, the site that I want to take a look at is a site that's located in Missouri. And what they want to be able to do is put a commercial building on this site. So one of the things that we will take a look at is how this site is represented in terms of InfraWorks, Civil 3D, Revit, and then also Navisworks and Autodesk Vehicle Tracking, and how you can pull those together. So the first thing that we want to do again, the reason I mentioned this is the flexibility that you have to grab existing topo data and bring it into a model. And then once in that model, we can kind of go from there from that model. So the first thing we want to do in terms of InfraWorks is I'm going to type in this address and I'm going to say I want to go to 63 Truman Road, and that Truman Road is going to be in Mansfield, Missouri. And if I just pick on it, it zooms right to it. So I'm in Missouri, and if I zoom out a little bit, I can see an aerial of a specific area. So Mansfield, Missouri. We'll zoom back to that. And then what we can do is we can look at a bird's eye view. So what we're doing now is we're taking a look at a bird's eye view of that site. So if I zoom in a little bit, this is the area that we want to develop. Right now, there's another industrial and commercial building located right next door. So what I want to be able to do is grab an area of interest. So when I pick on it, I can draw a rectangle that represents my area of interest. So this area could be up to 200 square kilometers. And I'm just going to call this site Truman. So something pretty simple. And then I'm going to create a model. So what that does is that creates a model that it sends to me via email, recognition that the model has been complete. And then we'll see what that model brings to the table. So in the interim of that model coming up, there are a few things that I'm going to make a point to about Revit, Civil 3D, and InfraWorks. Everyone should be familiar with Autodesk accounts. And then if you go to Autodesk accounts, one of the things that you really want to take a look at is the ideal of the products that you have. And then on the left-hand side here, there's product enhancements. So at some point today, we will be looking at Revit and Civil 3D and Navisworks. If you go to product enhancements on the left-hand side here, these are all the enhancements that Autodesk allow you to add in to your individual products. And one that's specifically important is this product tools for Civil 3D. When I pick on product tools for Civil 3D, these tools make reference to the software that's included with the collection of tools and the content for industry-specific workflows. And again, we're making reference to collaboration of multiple products. So with Civil 3D, there's one that's critical, which is called the shared reference point. Now this came out in 2015, 2016, so you guys should be familiar with that. If not, we will take a look at that, because one of the things that I've run into over the vast years of using Revit and Civil 3D is this idea that there's no real good way to move data back and forth in terms of Civil 3D data and a Revit building. And then also with Civil 3D, you also work with state coordinates and things like that. And Revit really doesn't have a state coordinates. It gives you a kind of location in terms of where you can say you're at, but it doesn't have state plane coordinates that kind of tie in with Civil 3D and state plane coordinates. The shared point addresses that issue. Also with Revit, one of the things that has been a topic high on the totem pole is this ideal that, you know, why do I always have to get a CAD drawing from AutoCAD or Civil 3D and then create contours and then have to go in and struggle with curb and gutter and things like that, and streets and center line alignments and things like that. There are some things that I will show you that make it seamless for you to take a actual Civil 3D surface with curb and gutter straight into Revit without you selecting one contour. So we'll take a look at that also. And then the ability to push Revit data into InfraWorks, back into Revit, and then from InfraWorks, pushing bridge and roll data into Revit and Civil 3D. So product tools for AutoCAD, Civil 3D, you get the Autodesk shared point, and then there's also a shared reference point for Revit. Okay, so two critical things that you need to be aware of. Now, if we jump back, move on, back to InfraWorks. So if you notice, in the time that it took me to explain that, this model has been built. So now that we're back on my model, we'll just open up this model, and it's pretty seamless. It takes a couple seconds, and we'll see what we get. So one of the things that has happened is it's going to build this model, and then when it opens this model, there are several things that you will get with this model. So you're going to get a topo, an aerial, and also street and roads. So as you can see, and if we go, let me move this over just a little bit. There's my true north, not Project North. So there's my site. So some really nice features. There's a building there, some pretty straightforward stuff, but we want to be able to develop this. So one of the things that I just want to quickly talk about is this idea of feasibility and how we can start bringing in data. So under my data sources, InfraWorks allows me to bring in a CAD drawing, a 2D overlay, Civil 3D drawing, an Autodesk Revit model, point cloud, a raster image, and then also shape files. So ability, and not only shape files, but also SketchUp. So ability to bring in other sources of data into your model, because ultimately we want to communicate the ideal that this site will look a specific way once we finish developing it. So something really quick, if I go into my edit tab, I can go in and I can create a land area. So in terms of land area, I'm just going to pick this point here just to kind of give you a feel for what you can do in terms of some quick feasibility. So I'll pick on that, and then I'll hit escape. I'll just go to my style palette, and on my style palette, I'll scroll down and I'll just select grading. And from my grading, I'll just put on here 3:1. So I'll just drag it 3 to 1. So you will notice it has graded this site in terms of that pad 3 to 1. So it's some really quick stuff. And if I came to my analysis, I could come in and do something really simple like terrain statistics. So if I pick on this, so just some really quick numbers that you need to be able to determine. I have 2D and 3D area cut and fill volumes with just a few picks and clicks in terms of my site. So in terms of grading, we always need to check volumes in terms of feasibility, in terms of what that site's going to be. InfoWorks allows you to quickly use a conceptual analysis in terms of what that is. At some point, we will do some grading, put a building, a parking lot to kind of show what the results of a conceptual plan would be in InfoWorks. So one of the things that we want to keep in mind is this model can be pushed straight to Civil 3D, opened up in Civil 3D. You will get the grading, you will get the road data, and you will get land areas. So just some quick stuff to ability to go from InfoWorks into Civil 3D. So some pretty straight stuff, again, with InfoWorks. So one of the things that is critical in reference to InfoWorks is this ideal on the settings tab. There is a applications option, and then on the data import, one of the things that is critical is this ideal that you need the ability to import Navisworks, simulate or manage, and then the ability to support Civil 3D objects, Revit objects, DGN, and also SketchUp. So as long as you have that selected, moving data back and forth is kind of seamless. So again, one of the things that I've done is kind of created this surface. If I jump right out of this model, I've created another model just to kind of show you how you can pull data in and out of InfoWorks. So if I go back to just a quick site, you can also bring in point cloud data into InfoWorks. So you've seen what type of aerial photography and topo you get with InfoWorks straight out of the box. You can also bring in topo data in terms of doing a site in reference to a drone flying over. So in the interim, I've brought in this topo of this actual site after I've done some grading. So some really nice stuff that you can push back and forth from Civil 3D into InfoWorks. And also this ability to bring this similar site into Revit. So something as simple as this. I know I have a building right here. If I go to my model and data sources, I can bring in a building. So if I double click on this building right now, if I look at it, this is just a Revit model that I have if I wanted to pull it in to InfoWorks. So just to see, pretty simple in terms of what I want to be able to do, I'm going to select interactive placing. And if you notice, let me zoom out. Let's move this over here. Here's my Revit model. And I'm just going to double click on it right there. Pretty simple. And I'll select close and refresh. So again, the ability to kind of display what the context of the existing environment is and what the proposed building and site would look like. So we're going to take a look at that. This is just going to take a couple seconds to bring this building in. And then what I'm going to do is from this building, I'm going to go in and take a look at what this looks like in CAD. And then we'll talk about a shared reference point and how we can bring in some of that data into Civil 3D into Revit. So again, being able to generate a 3D model from Revit, consider the time that it would take to create this in a CAD format, and then what this would look like if I brought in actual aerial and pictures that were shot from a drone. So we'll take a look at that and then we'll move on. So again, just a couple things in terms of picks and clicks to bring in this data. So I'm going to show one more model after this comes in, and then we'll move on. So this takes up to, I think we're looking at about 1 minute and 45 seconds. So it starts refreshing. And then a couple seconds later. So again, a couple things to keep in mind. Straight out of the box, being able to bring in a Revit model that I can do walkthroughs. So considering a lot of functionality in reference to what this site would look like, different perspectives. Let me go ahead and close that. Different perspectives of what this building would look like. So again, I haven't even brought in the aerial. I just wanted to show you what it looks like if I bring in a Civil 3D surface and a Revit model. So pretty straightforward. And again, being able to view different perspectives inside and outside of the building. One of the things also to consider is the ability to look at my sun and sky. So wind speeds, shadows, all those things in reference to time of day, what date it is. So some aspect of shadow analysis that you can use with InfraWorks. We'll just close that right up. And again, pretty straightforward. So it just looks like a clear site as of right now. So if I pick on this, one of the critical things is, you know, I have the ability to go right back in here under my data sources and select remove. Pretty straightforward. It's gone. So something real quick, and we're going to jump back to this in a moment. But as of right now, again, the ability to bring in point clouds so I can show you detailed data in terms of what you would be able to do in terms of working with InfraWorks. And then we'll jump to Civil 3D. So something pretty simple, just to give you an idea. So whether it's commercial, residential, industrial, buildings that we need to lay out for earthworks and things like that in terms of layout, InfraWorks addresses it. And I'm not going to push a lot of InfraWorks, but you know, something as simple as this in terms of grading, in terms of bringing in a point cloud. So I have my InfraWorks model, and then I have a point cloud right on top. So with my point cloud, you can get really, really detailed in terms of the data that you're bringing in. And if you really wanted to get detail in terms of showing, in terms of drive-throughs and things like that, you can also do that. So some pretty straightforward. Again, InfraWorks, go anywhere in the world, grab topo data, aerial photography, building data, and road data in seconds. So we'll jump right back out of there. So now, let's take a look at this idea of Civil 3D. So within Civil 3D, there's a few things that we want to take a look at. With Civil 3D, the idea of being able to go from InfraWorks to Civil 3D, and one of the things that may be a challenge would be some of you have multiple versions of software, from 2016, 2017, 2018. It behooves you to try to stay current in reference to the products in terms of pushing out production. So if you're going to be 2017, keep everything with 2017. If you're going to move to 2018, then you're going to need to have everything with 2018 when we start talking about these connected workflows between multiple products like InfraWorks, Civil 3D, Revit, and Navisworks. So as an example, I am going to open up an InfraWorks model. So right now, if I pick on it, I'm going to do a quick search here. So I'm going to come in here to users and go back one. And we'll go back a couple. Now we'll have to find that program files. And what needs to be done is we need to actually find the InfraWorks model in terms of the location. And what I have done is if I come under InfraWorks, we scroll down and we call that model. We'll go back. So we'll jump to my other drawing. So just in case, I lose sight of that, we have a drawing called site. So from this site, one of the things we want to be able to do is this data was brought in from, and we'll erase that just to make sure. So this data was brought in from InfraWorks. So what I did was, one of the things that architects really want to be able to do in terms of determining how many stalls that are required for the building in terms of a parking lot, we want to be able to look at Civil 3D once we push that site in terms of its property line from InfraWorks into Civil 3D. And as you can see, there's a couple things that I have here, and I have that Revit building turned for a specific purpose. I also have some lines kind of laid out in terms of what that site is. So if we just jump right back to that site, you can see that there's a pond and things in that building just kind of sitting right there. So moving that data back and forth from InfraWorks into Civil 3D, it brings in my topo, and I really don't want to show the topo right now because I'm going to look at a few other things, but I want to make reference to, one, creating parking stalls and referencing this building. So the first thing that I want to do is, I talked about under accounts, we have in Civil 3D, if we go to the toolbox, there is a Autodesk shared reference point for Revit. So what I want to be able to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to select execute. My drawing already has a coordinate system tied to it. So before I execute that, on the settings tab, if I right click, again, Revit has no idea where the site is at. Civil 3D, you can tell it specifically based upon the coordinate system. from this coordinate system, I can be anywhere in the country, and I have state plane coordinate system that I can tie into. I'll go ahead and select OK. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my toolbox, and I'm going to select Execute. It's prompting me for an origin point. My first point is going to be this building corner. And then my second point is going to be this other corner. One of the things that it does is it sets the coordinate system in a world coordinate system. It gives me an XY coordinate. What is critical is that this polyline has a elevation tied to it. We want to keep that in mind when we jump into Revit. And then there's a rotation axis, and then I want this to be in feet. And then I select OK, and then I'm going to call this webcast my reference SharePoint. And I'll just go ahead and select OK. Now that I have that, what I want to be able to do now is I want to jump into Revit. Once I jump into Revit and come back, then we're going to take a look at Autodesk vehicle tracking, because I'm just going to blow this away. And normally I wouldn't blow things away if they weren't so easily created and ability to access them from these different products. But we're going to jump into Revit. So I'm going to start up Revit 2017. And this just takes seconds. And let me just check to see how I'm doing with time. Okay. All right. So we'll open up Revit. Here's Revit. And all I want to do is I want to open up this building. So I have my Revit building. We've seen the Revit building in InfoWorks. So we've seen the Revit model in InfoWorks. What we want to be able to do now is take a look at the Revit model here. So if I came in and I went to plans, I can go to a floor plan, elevation pit. Even this elevation pit, that's fine in terms of my floor plan. So we'll just jump right to it. There's my Revit model. If I wanted to kind of test it to take a look to see what it looked like in 3D, then I'll just go up to my 3D view. And clearly, there's a lot of you who have registered for a registration with architectural and engineering. So let me come back with this Revit model, jump right back to there. So there's that building. So pretty straightforward. If I move this around a little bit, I can rotate that building. Pretty straightforward. There's my Revit model. One of the things that I had talked about is the idea of bringing in a civil 3D surface and what this Revit model looks like. So the first thing is on my add-ins, when I download and run that executable file for that shared reference file, it has on my add-ins a import shared coordinates from an XML file. Typically previously exported from Civil 3D, automatically creates that coordinate with the same name in Revit. Also, now in 2017, 2018, you have Site Designer. I know a lot of people have said, you know, Site Designer is really, really detailed and a lot of buttons here and there. But from Civil 3D, you can have them create that terrain surface with curb and gutter that you can pull right into Revit seamlessly. And that would be used by using a XML file. Use a land XML file from Civil 3D to create that topo surface, and it's automatically created in Revit. So now you don't have to go in and tell those CAD users, can you create with these polylines and these offsets and this curve? you can have that automatically generated from Civil 3D straight into Revit. And I'll show that momentarily. So back to my 2D plan. So we'll jump right back to that. So one of the things we want to be able to do, we'll go back to this 2D plan. So now when I come into my 2D plan, you can see here's that Revit building. So one of the things I want to do is on my add-ins, I want to import shared coordinates. And then on my import shared coordinates, I picked my building's back wall. So I picked it because it's turned around. So I'm just going to go up here, pick that point, and pan over. Do that again. We'll go import shared coordinates. We'll pick that endpoint, and we'll pick that endpoint. And then it says, okay, well, what shared coordinate do you want? And that shared coordinate is that webcast shared reference point. And then I'll just select OK. And then it says, are you sure you want to create a new shared coordinate webcast? Definitely. So I'll select yes, and it says successfully done. Now the typical person like myself who doesn't use Revit sparingly would say, well, nothing happened. So there's a couple things that need to be done. So the first thing that needs to be done on the Manage tab. On the Manage tab, we want to go in and tell it specifically, this is a different location. So this location clearly is not in New York. So up here, we have location, weather, site. And this site, I wanted to use the orientation and position from the project in relation to other buildings, but based upon the shared site defined in this project. So I'll just pick webcast, and I'll make that current. So I'll make that current. So now on the terms of location, we're fine with that. Weather and site, that's no big thing, because even if you change that location and things like that, none of that does anything in terms of state plane coordinates. So clearly you can see it has changed here. So under site, we set it for current, and then we select OK. And then what we want to be able to do is from that, we can go to our properties here. So on our properties here, we can see specifically our view template, coordinates, what our orientation is. So my orientation, I want to pick my true north for my orientation, and I'm going to select apply. And that'll take a second there. So my true north orientation, if I came back to my floor plan and I looked at it, and we're going to look at street level, that's fine. And we'll move back, and we'll come back to massing and site. And then on my view tab, we'll take a look at my 3D view. And we'll notice that this building is rotated. So let me come back on my plan view. So we'll go back to my floor plan. So we'll go back to my location just to make sure. And we are using 2017, okay. And we'll select OK. So what I want to be able to do now is I'm going to keep this in a 2D view. And we're going to just select my area plan. And we'll select elevation pit. automatically create boundary associated with all walls, and I'll select yes. And we're going to move this over. So what I want to do now is I want to export this out. So I'm going to go export to a CAD format, DWG. So clearly this isn't Honolulu. So we need to change this to my in-session export. And then from that, we need to make sure that this is ACID solids. And then everything is fine with lines, layers, colors. And then my units and coordinates, I specifically want feet since I'm going to a CAD drawing. And then my project internal, that coordinate basis needs to be shared. So I'll go ahead and select OK. I'll select next. And then it's going to give me, and I'll say webcast. And I'll put it in my folder for C connected workflows, and we'll put it right there. Select OK. And I'm fine with it because right now I don't see any kind of change. So I'm just going to come here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do a simple CAD command. I'm going to detach that. I'm going to go up and I'm going to select attach DWG. I'm going to come to my webcast building share, select open. I don't have to specify anything on screen. Select OK. And there's that building. So the idea of going back and forth from Revit and moving and turning buildings, things like that, seamless if you use that Autodesk shared reference point. Okay, so something real quick. We got that building in there and we really don't need it. We're going to go X reference. Just wanted to show you that real quick. We're going to detach that. No big deal. I'm going to come in, rotate this building, just get this thing out of the way because we can do another reference point. And I am going to do that by some quick AutoCAD. So no big deal. Put that right back there. So what I have now is this idea of how do we get our parking lot laid out really quick after we brought this in from InfraWorks? Well, you have Autodesk vehicle tracking. So what I want to be able to do is something really quick. Autodesk vehicle tracking comes with swept path analysis, parking lot layout, and roundabouts. So we'll go just something simple like a new road. And I'm just going to create some really quick stuff. And I'm going to say, OK. And I'm going to make that my default. So I'm going to zoom in here. And I'm just going to try to snap to a few things. Pick that point, hit enter. Pick that right there. Hit enter. Come right back. I'm going to pick this point. Pick that end point. Right click. Put that in. And I'm just, again, doing some quick parking lot stuff. Maybe you guys do this already. Maybe you don't. So pick that point, pick that point, pick that point. So some really quick stuff. Right click from here to here. Just put some quick parking lot. You know, go from here to here. Quick parking. Stalls from here. We go like, what do you want to do here? From here to here. And we just want one side there. And same thing here. So it's just some quick. And again, I know you guys are doing this right now. That's why I'm not doing a lot of explaining. I'm just picking and clicking because you guys are doing the same thing. So I'll just come here, pick there, right click, pick there. Autodesk vehicle tracking. And there, something real quick, and then we'll do another. We'll say, we'll go in from here into there, right click, and pick that side. So it's just some quick stuff in terms of parking lot layout. I mean, if you're offsetting lines, we got to have some conversation, right? And we'll do this real quick here, here, there, there. And one more. And we'll go from here to here, and bang. There's my parking lot. And then you pick the magic button and you say, okay, what's my parking? Excuse me. So there's my 388 stalls, 100%. So then based upon the parameters for the site, you need to have such handicaps and specific rows. So I can say edit parking bay or edit a row or edit an island. So if I say edit a specific row, I'll just pick on it, something pretty simple. You can do two-way, one-way, right turns. You can do all those things. I hit escape. If I came back, I can go in and I can say edit bay. I'll pick this bay right here. It brings this up. I say this needs to be handicap accessible. I say copy to specific islands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll go right back. Pick the magic button. There's my percentage for handicap. Pretty straightforward. Can't beat that. If I wanted to modify my island, pick on my CAD object. If I wanted to, I can say, okay, I want to change how that area is for green space. Automatic. Again, straight out of the box, Autodesk vehicle tracking. The beauty of working with this now is we have the ability to take this site and push it to InfoWorks so we can show it in a conceptual layout for display. I mean, it's some really nice things that you want to be able to do. So again, the beauty of working with this CAD is to be able to push this data into InfoWorks. So remember that concept that I was looking at. So there's some things that I've kind of been working with because an hour is a lot of time to get a short time to get a lot of stuff in. So what I've done in the interim is to kind of show you what you can get in terms of this site. So we'll open up this model. So pretty straightforward. There's my model again. So if I wanted to, just as an example, if I wanted to bring in that 2D CAD drawing, if I picked on it and said 2D CAD overlay, and I came in under connected workflows, yeah, I do have a site drawing. Let's see if that works. So it says this feature requires an internet connection. Autodesk 360 account. Everyone should have one of those. I'll select OK. It says connecting the data source, uploading the file. This site kind of takes a minute or two from that. Again, being able to lay out the parking stalls on the actual surface and then create a visualization that we can display and communicate what that site is going to look like. So as a quick example, here's the site is not configured, and what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to come in and just say this is going to be interactively placed, and I'm going to say this is going to be 55, and make sure we're in the right place. Select OK, and maybe it may not be on the right side. Oh, that's supposed to be Missouri. That changes that. The scale is fine. It's going to be drawing. Go back here. This coordinate. Let me go back, and I am going to interactively place this. And it says connected workflows site. Okay, so I'm going to close out of that. So, and again, I'm being cognizant of time. What I've done in the interim is I've created a proposal. So with InfoWorks, you can create multiple proposals. So from this proposal here, I'm going to go to what I created this site to actually look like after you bring in the parking lot and some green space. Put some cars and some trees in here. So again, to be able to do some of these things, and I know I'm doing a lot of things based upon our timeline, but you can clearly see I can have individual people walking through, and then for curb and gutter and things like that, pretty simple to create. And again, right on top of my surface. And then if I came back, I do have this master where I just kind of started it out in terms of what that aerial looks like from the drone flown. So if we look in here, you can kind of see, you know, people have things in their dashboards. So really detailed in terms of what you will get in terms of that drone being flown. But from pre-development all the way to a conceptual visualized site. And, you know, time-wise, to create that, it took me to do the surface. The surface is a large surface, but to create a surface with Civil 3D and push it, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours to create this. So from InfoWorks to Civil 3D, back from Civil 3D into Revit, back out from Revit. So one other quick thing in Revit, and I know you guys don't do a lot of roads because no one kind of answered that, but the component in InfoWorks allows me to go from and just to do a quick road. Just to do a quick road, and everything's based upon AASHTO standards, and we just whip a quick road in there. And it's grabbing the surface data, and it's giving me total length. It's grabbing all my elevations, all the things necessary to do an existing road with InfoWorks. So one of the other things that I want to quickly show you is this, while that's coming in. And that's going to take a second. But this right here, just to quickly show you. I'm just going to open up Civil 3D 2018 because I mentioned 17, 18, 16. Just want to quickly show you bringing in that surface and what you can do with Civil 3D. And of course, we've seen Autodesk vehicle tracking in terms of what you would want to do for some quick site details and things like that. If I came in, once this catches up, we'll come right in here. Enter a name to open up drawing. So of course, everyone knows what that is. That command, once that loads up, is file DIA. And that needs to be set to 1. And quickly, to get my dialog boxes back, and We have a couple more minutes, then I'll take questions. So I have a surface here, and I want to push that surface into InfraWorks. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to do too much. Just type in plan, and I'm going to do something really quick. With Civil 3D, everyone's familiar with Civil 3D. I'm just going to show some quick properties with Civil 3D 1 and 5 contours. Select OK. Just make sure those are being displayed. Select OK. Select OK. So from that, we're going to cut everything on. So just some quick CAD stuff. See some points, things like that. So there's my surface. Okay. Do this rectangle here. And from this, if I hold my cursor, it's showing me existing ground. Now, let me just move it over a little bit. Here's my parking lot. Okay, so I just got a finished grade over here. So I'm gonna freeze this. And let's see what we got here. So I'm gonna do something really quick. So we're gonna do a polyline. And let me see what we got here. Just let me make sure. There's still people holding on. Well, have a little patience there. So I'll pick this point, and I just want to show this quick little island here so we can address that here. We'll do an arc here for something pretty simple. And we'll do a line here, and we'll come right back to here in terms of straight down. And then we'll do arc, and then we'll do close. How about that? So then what I want to do is I'm going to create a feature line from this. Create a feature line. This takes a second, and 2 minutes, and I think we're going to address this. So I'm going to assign elevations. This elevation from the finished grade, which is here. Finished grade, insert intermediate grade breaks, select OK. If I pick on that, all that's done. It's grabbed elevations from my surface. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick on this, and I do a quick stepped offset. I'm going to do 0.1, and I'm going to pick this side, and the difference between that is going to be a 1 foot curve. So from that, I'm going to pick on these two, and I'm going to say add surface as a break line to finish grade. Select OK. Make that really small, and then we should see something different there, which now you can see that there's a contour here. If I pick on that, right click, and go to Object Viewer, you can see that I just created something really quick and simple with my parking lot. From that parking lot, I'm going to right click and say Export out XML, select OK. From that, I'm going to go here and put it in my connected workflows, and I'm going to say feature line relative to the surface. I'm going to save that out. I'm going to close that. I'm not even going to save it. I'm going to jump right back into Revit. I am going to close this Revit. I'm not going to save it. No big deal. I'm going to come here, and I'm going to say new. I just create a new construction project template. That's fine. We'll select OK. I just really needed a clean stream. So from that, if I came in and I said, okay, I want to do a 2D area plan, we're good with that. Level 1, put that in, select OK. One other thing that we want to be able to do also. We'll scroll down. My view range. Remember view range? It's 0. I'm going to put this at 3,000. 3,000. 3,000. How about that? And I select OK. So now I just want to come to my site designer and say import land XML. I'm going to grab that. The one that I created was connected workflows. Here's my XML surface. I select OK. Description is finished ground. Existing ground, phase 1, that's fine. Number of points, topo, it says that doesn't matter. I'll import. Process is done. Select OK. And I'll come here for my view. I'll turn that into 3D. And there's my, and I got it flipped around, but you can see that curve.